From Relay FM, this is Connected, episode 94. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Squarespace and Braintree. My name is Mike Hurley. I am joined by Federico Vitici. Ciao, Federico.
Ciao, Mike.
And Stephen Hackett. Howdy, Stephen Hackett.
That's not how you do it.
Really caught me off track there, honestly.
Yep. This is how I do it today. Everything's out of the window.
Yeah, we're going to jump right in. We're not doing any follow-up. We were already planning on recording a little bit later this week due to some other things. And about an hour before we recorded, Apple dropped a bunch of news. And so we had like 3 pages of WWDC predictions, which we're going to do, I think, maybe an abbreviated version of that at the end of the show. The show is going to be really focused on the App Store changes that were just announced. But first, Mike, you wanted to talk to us a little bit about Google Live Photos.
Okay, so this app is called Motion Stills. It may as well be called Google Live Photos. Like, I don't know why you'd give it any other name. So Google dropped this app last night, which basically takes a look at your photo roll, looks at all of the live photos, does some magic to them, and then allows you to create movie files and GIFs out of them. Google is doing something with their AI big data photo processing stuff that they've been working on, I assume, with Google Photos, to take a look at what's going on inside of your live photos, stabilize them, and as _David Smith put it on Twitter, makes them look like you meant to take them rather than just as an extra bonus to your photograph. If you've not tried this app, it's free. It's mind-blowing, and effectively, Google have done a better job with processing of live photos than I think Apple ever could, and have kind of made Apple look bad, in my opinion, because what this app spits out is incredible. And if you've played around with it, I found this whilst messing around yesterday. When you click into one of the photos, there is the little logo that they have in the bottom. If you hit it, it shows you what the live photo looks like and then what the motion still looks like. And you can see the difference between them. And it really kind of shows up how good they are. I am just blown away by this application. And I have one wish. And I really wish this could happen, that I could save these back out as live photos again. I wished it was possible to do that, because I would just be processing all of my live photos that I care about through this application and saving them. It's a shame that you can only output them as GIFs and movies. Blown away by this.
If anything, it's an argument in favor of how Google can use, what do they call it, big data, to kind of ship a consumer app that's easy to use, easy to understand, and the final product, it doesn't look like a lot of work. But in reality, Google is able to do this and to pull this off because they look at a lot of pictures, they look at a lot of live photos from iOS users, they know how to stabilize them, how to make them look pretty, and the end result is this, pretty nice package, but actually there's a lot of data behind the scenes. And if Google starts doing this kind of consumer-friendly, easy-to-use iOS apps based on their own, Cloud Vision APIs, or, all of the data that they can gather from, photos, emails. You can make the same argument for Google Inbox, maybe. But if Google starts doing more of these, I think it'll be great, because it'll, sort of raise the competition for Apple to make even better apps. Because I feel like, having tried these motion stills, now my live photos look all blurry and, what do you call something that moves a lot? Motiony? I don't know.
Yeah,
Shaky?
unstable, maybe?
Unstable? Yeah, motiony is better. But
because I have to say, I'm maybe in the small camp of people that absolutely loves live photos. I leave it on constantly, and I am always surprised and happy about some of the little things that come through with live photos. I think it's a fantastic feature. This app has really shown me, though, how much better they could be, and I want my live photos to just look like this. Google has done something kind of incredible here. It's one of those things where it's like, this is as you kind of mentioned, Federico, about the using the data to create a consumer product. This is kind of just like a really small thing that they've made. It looks like a very small utility, and it's like, this is what we can do.
Yes.
And it's kind of like, holy moly. Okay. That's kind of how you look at it. It's like, wow, Apple would have loved to have been able to do this. I would assume this just cannot be done without all of that big data processing that occurs. And the crazy thing is, like, you're not uploading these photos anywhere to have this happen. It's just doing it. And that's what I don't understand. Like, how is it doing it? I'm blown away by it. Absolutely fantastic application. I love just looking at them.
Got a few bugs in places. I mean, I've had a few issues, but the overall debut, I would say, and this is a Google research project. It's not even meant to be like a full-blown app launch. It's a small utility from Google research. Really well done. Really nice idea.
Yep. I really hope that like just one of those little SDK points for 10 is to be able to save live photos. That would be real great. I would be very, very happy about that, because then they could add it to this application and then I could do some processing, and that would be awesome. Come on, Apple, make me happy. All right, so we kind of alluded to this up the top. Apple released some huge news today via some interviews with some news outlets about App Store changes. So we want to get into those. But before we do, let me take a moment to thank our first sponsor of this week's episode, and that is Braintree Code for easy mobile payments. Maybe you are hard at work on the next Airbnb, GitHub, or Uber. You're working day and night and you're coding like a crazy person. Why not use the simple payments solution that all of these companies use to help them become what they are today? Braintree makes mobile payments so fast, easy, and seamless, it's almost like magic. You can add it to your app with just a few lines of code, and you'll be instantly ready to accept Apple Pay, Android Pay, PayPal, Venmo, credit cards, and even Bitcoin. And if some other way to pay comes along, Braintree will support that too. If you're building a business that takes payments from people, being able to take payments in as many ways as possible is always a win. Braintree's fast payouts and continuous support means that you'll be ready whether you're earning your first dollar or your billionth. See fewer abandoned carts and more sales with Braintree's best-in-class mobile checkout experience. Find out more today and check it out for yourself at braintreepayments.com/connected. Once again, that's braintreepayments.com/connected. Thank you so much to Braintree for their support of this show and Relay FM. All right, so let's pick a couple of news outlets here. So Phil Schiller sat down in the last day or two with a few, namely The Verge, The Loop, and also John Gruber at Daring Fireball. I'll include links to those because it's a few different takes. I mainly spent time with The Verge's article. They had a really good in-depth article by Lauren Good. Excellent reporting as always. And they did a good job of really making it a pretty article too, which is always a nice thing. Whew, this is big stuff.
Mm-hmm.
All of these changes are applying to all of their app stores, and they've kind of got 2-3 really big things here. So the first up is something that we're all expecting them to do on stage at WWDC, regardless of whatever changes were happening, which was to acknowledge the fact that app review has changed, and they are making it faster. Don't really seem to go into too much detail as to how they're doing this, right? I haven't seen anything here. Have you guys seen anything from any of the reports about the how?
They just said new processes, whatever it means.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably all we're going to find out, right? I assume maybe Apple want to limit the amount of ways that people could try and game this system, because there's clearly a change with more automated processing, I think, which is what we'd all assumed anyway. But this has changed significantly.
Gruber has some more details, if you will. So according to his interview with Schiller, it's 3 things making the app review faster. Tool improvements, so technology, staff changes, and policy changes. And apparently Gruber asked Schiller about these policy changes, but Schiller didn't want to say anything.
Of course he didn't.
There you go.
But a good statistic, we're at the point now, this is from Apple, that 50% of submitted apps are now reviewed within 24 hours and 90% are reviewed within 48. Seeing that statistic coming from them, we were kind of guessing it, that is an astronomically big change, right? 50% within 24 hours.
And in the Loop article, Phil Schiller says that it's like 100,000 app reviews a week, which, I figured it was high. That number seems bonkers to me. And so you would think that to get that many reviews done faster that whatever they change, whatever they're not saying, has to be significant to make such a big impact.
Yeah, because then you're assuming from that, like, you couldn't do with any reasonable amount of stuff 50,000 apps in 24 hours over a weekly basis, right? It's just no way you could do that. It just doesn't seem like something that you'd be able to give enough time to, right? You following me? I know that the numbers sound weird the way that I say them, but if you imagine that, like, if there's 100,000 a week, 50% of them in 24 hours, how many people would you need to make that happen if it was fully human reviewed? There's no way that they could do that. So they've got to be increasing it there. But this is good to see that it's been acknowledged, because now that it's been acknowledged, I think maybe developers will be able to try and rely on it a little bit more, right? That you maybe will budget 48 hours in now rather than 2 weeks, if 90% are within 48 hours. Federico, this has got to be great for you, right? When you're thinking about embargoes and stuff.
Well, it brings a few changes. Like, it used to be that the developers would give me an advance notice of maybe like a couple of weeks.
I've just realized for you, like, the bad point is now, like, you used to get a week to write a review.
Exactly.
Now you might get 4 hours to do it.
No, I just gotta get started beforehand. So a developer has to tell me, look, we're trying to submit an app by next week.
Yeah.
And at that point, I gotta start writing, because then I know that app review will happen within 2 days. But the idea here is that, and of course, Apple doesn't want to confirm this, but the idea is that alongside, a better automated tools to kind of test the quality of an iOS app to see if it crashes or if it has, private APIs, the idea is that human app reviewers can maybe fast track apps from trusted long-time developers. And Gruber says that this is an impression that he has. Apple doesn't want to confirm or deny this, so we can only speculate. But I feel like it's one of those things that behind the scenes they would make sense. If maybe Tapbots, for example, they have been developing Tweetbot for like 5 or 6 years now, and they go to submit an update, and the Apple automation tools go look to the binary of the app. They test the app. It doesn't crash. It doesn't have any private APIs. The human reviewer is assigned this app. He sees Tweetbot. He sees the reputation of the developer, and he goes like, okay, let's fast track this. I don't need to look at this at all. So maybe that's the kind of policy change that Phil Schiller is kind of hinting at. Mm-hmm. And of course, Apple doesn't want to confirm this, because otherwise developers will go and ask for, so how do I become a long-time trusted developer? How can my app be fast-tracked for review without, the human reviewer getting back to me with every single question about my app? I feel like we will never know about this, but if it is the case, it makes sense.
I would feel that they probably, there's like a score assigned to a developer,
yes.
Right? Like how many times have you had to expedite review? How many times have you had crashing apps? How many times have you broken rules? That kind of stuff. Refunds, all of that stuff. I mean, and this is a kind of a logical way to do it. Assigns to a score, and there's a threshold for score, and if you've got a high enough score, they just let you through on does it crash? No, well then we're probably good to go. Because the idea being then that, you want to be a good citizen, you don't want to do things you maybe shouldn't do because it would bring your score down, if we think of it that way. So that is app review. I expect we probably won't hear about this one on stage now. I think because we'll talk about this later. But WWDC is just around the corner. They've done all of this now. I still think that some of this will be recapped. But I think we all expected this was going to happen. Apple knows we've been talking about it for like a month. They've confirmed it. Job done. Right? Like we're all good now, guys. You've given us what we were looking for. So this is another change here. So. Subscriptions have existed in the App Store for a long time. They've been fixed to specific types of applications, like media applications, dating applications, that kind of stuff. You could have subscriptions, like productivity stuff, like Microsoft Office apps and things like that. You could have subscriptions in a you'd be able to manage them in a really old-looking part of the App Store. Have you ever been to that part when you go and manage your subscriptions and you get pinstripe screens?
It's pretty bad.
I had to cancel one recently because I signed up for an app that I had to subscribe to use, and I only needed it for like one thing, so I went in there to get rid of it, and I was like, hello, iOS 6. I didn't know you were hiding back here. but okay, so what we have here basically is now it seems all applications can have a subscription model, and it will kind of be upfront as a thing in the App Store. So what we have was like maybe buy and get. We may now see subscribe, and you'll subscribe for a fee, and it will be monthly, annually, however the developer chooses to do it.
This is one thing that's a little ambiguous in reading these articles and then reading a page on Apple's developer website, which we'll have the link for in the show notes as well. Apple really outlines two different types of apps that can do this. The first one being content apps, like what we've seen before, and the second one being services, which we've seen some apps do this, like Spotify and Evernote. You can pay through the App Store mechanism for their service. And Gruber points out, like maybe Tweetbot or Twitterific, for instance, could implement this thing to have regular income coming in, so they can continue to update their apps. But the way the Apple page reads, that is really not for that. This says that although all categories of apps will be eligible, this model is not appropriate for every app. That it needs to be something that comes with a service with quote, ongoing value worth the recurring payment.
Yeah, but couldn't that just be ongoing development? Like the quotes
I don't think so.
that Schiller gives to the Verge seem to indicate that. Like he talks about games. I mean,
and Apple calls out games as a service. That massive multiplayer online games are a service.
Right, but could news apps be services? Like, would you class Tweetbot as a news app?
No. And what I would, and thinking about an app like OneWriter, just to throw one that's on my home screen out, like it's a text editor. I don't think that they could get away with doing some sort of auto-renewable subscription. What I think this will lead to is, undoubtedly, as this rolls out later this year, there will be articles we'll write them and talk about them, where a developer tries to do a subscription and Apple says no, and it makes sense to everyone else that they should get in. Or vice versa, that someone, who writes a text editor app tries to do an auto subscription. We're all like, what the hell? This is not an ongoing service. There's going to be middle ground here that they have to figure out.
Like, I completely agree with what you're saying, but this is where it gets ambiguous. From The Verge, he suggests many enterprise apps can move to subscription, and that professional apps that require a lot of maintenance and new features and versions would be a good fit. Like, isn't that every app? Like, it's really difficult.
Is OmniFocus suitable for a new subscription on the App Store?
It may, because you get a sync service. I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't know where the line is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tricky to understand, because is Peacock or...
I was just going to bring up James, right? Because he'll be the one to break it for everyone, right?
Yes. I don't know, is Drafts a service, or do you have to have some kind of web service component? Like, I don't understand. I get it for content like Netflix and Spotify and, HBO, whatever. When it comes down to, indie, or not necessarily indie, but just utilities. So like a text editor or something like Ulysses. Do you subscribe to Ulysses? I don't know. I struggle to understand this for two reasons. One, because it's different from what we used to have, and two, because the Apple documentation is kind of vague right now. And it'll be interesting to see what Apple explains next week, because Schiller says we wanted to announce this so developers can come to WWDC and attend sessions about these changes while already having the knowledge of what is going on, what is changing. So there will be sessions about this next week. And I want to understand, because a lot of the articles that I read today seem to kind of follow the idea that, according to Apple, the future is on the App Store is subscriptions. And all of these articles mention developers have been, asking for paid upgrade pricing for paid apps for a long time. And this is the answer. But then you go look at the Apple documentation and it says, well, look, you got to understand subscriptions are not for everyone. And either your app falls in the content area or in the service area. And you still have to remember that there's different models that you need to know before considering subscriptions. So you can do freemium, you can do free, you can do paid model, you can do paymium. That's an ugly word, but it's on Apple's website. And so it's not like Apple is saying, look, everyone, drop your paid apps, drop your in-app purchases. We're all doing subscriptions right now. There are some changes, but my interpretation is that this is definitely not for everyone, at least not right now. And mostly because I don't know if Apple will accept everyone. I mean, if I have a calculator and I've been developing this calculator for 6 years, is it like a service? Is it a recurring value, whatever Apple calls it? No clue. So
this reminds me of, I guess, App Store 1.0, right? Like The Verge calls this App Store 2.0, which is a funny line, but I can kind of see it in that here's a bunch of rules. We're not going to fully define them yet because we don't know yet. And that's why, and again, like the idea of them putting it out there now and then talking to developers next week and then waiting for apps to be submitted over the next couple of months, because it's like, okay, what are we going to do? Like, where does this work? We don't know if this works. And it is that idea that, like, something like OmniFocus submits, and you're like, okay, we look at this app, we look how expensive it is, we look at the work that goes into it. That makes sense. But then you look at something like, I don't know, 123 Note Taker, right? Which has had like one update in the last 4 years, and it doesn't do anything. Sorry if this app exists, it probably does, and it's probably not good.
123 Note Taker.
Mm-hmm. And they look at it and be like, well, it doesn't make sense here, and they kind of have to try and judge it that way. There's still more to go. We haven't spoken about it all yet. There's more pricing tiers. There's now 200 across countries and currencies. And The Verge points out a good thing that, like, imagine a company like Netflix, they could have their regular pricing in the US, and if they've got an emerging market or a new company, they can have a different pricing tier and a different currency in that country. I think that's really cool. And in the same idea, if you're charging, you're a developer and you've got a subscription either currently right now or a subscription, in a year's time, and you want to raise it for new customers, you can do that, and your current customers stay at the previous pricing. I thought this is also a really good way to do introductory pricing, right? You have a new update out, bring the price down, and then you put it up a few months later, and you keep the old people on the low price and new people on the new price. Mm-hmm. And users are alerted of any pricing changes before it's made. I'm interested to see what happens there, right? Because this is stuff that we don't know yet, but these like implementation details. Let's say I'm using 123 Note Taker, and and I'm paying every month because it's a really great app now. And then they want to change it to $100 a month, and I don't want to pay that anymore. And I say no. What happens? Does the app go away? Can I not use it anymore? Do I just not get any more updates? Like, what happens in that scenario?
In theory, like, you stop paying and the service ends.
Right, so, but then does the app delete? There's all of these, like, how does it
like
stop?
It shows you a message that says, look, you're not paying anymore. You're a cheap guy. You cannot use this app.
But it's like 123 Note Taker. You're charging me $100 a month. You're taking my notes ransom. And they're like, well, that's how it is. And in the same vein, like if I delete an application, does the subscription cancel? Because currently they don't. The subscriptions that exist right now, if you delete the app, the subscription continues. I would like to see stuff like that changed, but maybe it's because it's a real old system.
Yeah. Something, too, listed in the subscription prices on Apple's website is a way to kind of fake free trials, where if you have an auto-renewable subscription, you can set, like, the first subscription length, which you can do, like, monthly, every 2 months, every 6 months, or a year. You can set the first one to be free. And so someone can download a free app and have a free subscription to do whatever the app does, and then they don't get billed until the free trial period is over unless they go in and turn it off.
That's kind of cool.
It is, but
well, that's not new, is it?
I don't know. I think some of the wording here is different, but what's interesting to me in it is that is there going to be a temptation for developers where if you download an app and you don't pay for a subscription? Right now we think of subscriptions as, I download the newspaper app, but no new articles come in unless I pay. Are we going to be in a world where you download an app and it does nothing? It's just a shell until you turn on a subscription. And if that's true, and that's where we're going, then this free trial language makes more sense, because I can download the app and I can actually see what it's like. And then if it's not for me, then it's not for me. But I don't know. I don't know how much of this is new or not, but it's something that I think some developers are going to be playing with and trying to implement in new ways.
Yeah, because it like flat out says on developer.apple.com, for example, for a monthly subscription, you can offer users a 7-day or 1 month free trial. Now, the difference here, and you're right, Federico, this has existed before. The difference here is if OmniFocus goes to a subscription model, which it couldn't have done before, if it can do that, that is a very different scenario, right? Like you're now in the part where OmniFocus can give a free trial, which they couldn't do before. Right.
I feel like the bigger question here. So let's assume that where the Apple documentation is not clear yet, but any developer, like Gruber says, Tweetbot or Twitterific, whatever, will be able to use this model, so free subscription as a trial, and then charge, I don't know, annually or every 2 years for a version of an app, and then, another subscription when the current version is updated, like a major update the developer decides. So let's assume that everyone will be able to do this. Would you guys pay for your text editor or your graphics editing app or your task manager? Would you subscribe to those apps? Or how does this possible change make you feel?
Okay. Lots of my friends are developers. And I love them all and I want them to eat. And I'm happy to pay for software. But I have to say I'm a little uncomfortable with the idea of every app on my home screen, I pay monthly for it. There's just like that could really start adding up, right? If I'm paying $2 a month for 20 apps, as opposed to like $5 a year for them or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that what it does is like quadruples the revenue that these people can get. But what that also does is quadruples the amount of money I have to pay. And
it quadruples the app fatigue that a lot of people are already feeling.
And so I don't know. Like maybe what it is then is I just pick and choose my apps more and I download less new apps. Because I don't want to enter into like a myriad of new subscription prices. Like maybe I don't download a new game or 2 games every week for like £2 a pop because I'm concerned that I don't want to pay £2 a month in case I don't play this game and don't delete it yet. Because like for some people, I will download an application and I don't touch it for a while. Right? Like I download a game and I don't play it for a while because of whatever reason, but I've downloaded it. I'm going to keep it until I check it out. And I'm just thinking like, will it change the way that I approach buying applications? Like, will it be that like initially way too many people jump on this? Like the original App Store, right? Like people just ran in and they were like, here's this app costs £20 and we all pay for it because we had no idea what we were doing. Like, is that what's going to happen? I don't know. Like, but I feel like I could end up in a scenario where I have to make more decisions than I do right now. Where like right now it's like super easy. I just think to myself, oh, here's that money, and it's like gone. And well, I go, do I want to subscribe to this? Like, and then I don't ever download it, and that developer doesn't get any money out of me then, where they might have got some out of me before.
The upside, Mike. So my counter argument would be, if everyone, or if a lot of developers at least, switch to this model, you will actually download more apps because of the free trials. So you will get to try more apps. And eventually, once you find something that works for you, you will start paying for that app. So you will have more choice initially, and then you will narrow down your choices to the app that works for you. You will subscribe to that app, and it's the best apps will survive, if you will. Comes down to the quality and kind of the purpose of an app, if it has the features that you're looking for, if you like the design. So the better app succeeds, So you will be able to download, a bunch of different 1, 2, 3 note takers, and then you choose the note taker that you prefer. You subscribe to that one, and it looks like there's some nice changes for developers once you subscribe. I mean, you can have multiple tiers for like levels, such as like bronze or silver or gold. Like, I'm thinking for my own subscriptions for Club Mac Stories, I could have like a gold membership that is better than this normal membership. That's now possible with the new subscription APIs. or you can have cheaper prices for like emerging markets that used to not be possible with the previous subscription APIs. So once you do get a subscriber, it looks like you will, as a developer, you will have better tools, which is a nice change. As a customer, as a consumer, I think there will be and that's a big if. If, developers of the kind of apps that we use will be able to do this, I think there will be a change of kind of habits, the way that we discover apps. Used to be, we do our research before, we read app reviews, and then, we choose the app and like we got one shot. We buy that app and it has to work for us because the refunds are terrible. Now, it looks like the way that things will be in the future is we'll try an app from the App Store with a free subscription, we'll try them all, and then we'll choose one and we'll start paying for that one. It's different.
That feels like as a consumer, that feels like a nicer way to do it, right? Like you download a bunch of free apps because they're all subscriptions, and you try them and you pick the one that lasts. But like it's like understanding where that's gonna fall, right? Because then I just imagine that as I say, like let's say that the 10, 15 apps I have on my home screen will go to subscription. So that's very different to the way that I'm doing it right now, and it's just trying to see how this ends up shaking out. But I agree, there are routes in all directions. This could either be really, really great or not so great. And it's wondering where it falls within that greatness spectrum to see how this actually starts shaking out. There is one thing that we haven't mentioned yet, which is maybe the biggest piece of news in all of this, the Apple cut percentage drop.
Yes.
So everybody knows it's 70-30. Apple gets 30, the developer gets 70. After somebody is subscribed for a year to an application, Apple's cut is now dropped by 50% to 15% is what they take. So it's cut in half. And this, very interestingly, this new revenue split starts on June 13th for all applications that currently use subscription. That's weird, right? Like, why are they doing... Like, all of the rest of this is happening in the fall. It will be with iOS 10, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Why are they doing the revenue part on Monday?
I mean, maybe it's a good, good faith effort, goodwill kind of thing, where they say, hey, let's go ahead and get the clock counting now.
I'll tell you why, Mike, because there's Logic Pro is coming to the iPad and there will be a subscription.
Yeah, but there is no subscription currently. Well, and also Apple keeps 100% of that.
Well, whatever.
I was wondering, like, maybe someone like Amazon, maybe someone like Netflix, like they're like, it's okay, guys, we're going to take less from you.
This is interesting, and I feel like it kind of puts the spotlight on giving developers the proper recognition, because initially Apple gives you a lot of advantages with using the App Store, so you don't have to care about hosting and, search, because when it works, there's the App Store search. It gives you promotion. It gives you a CDN for screenshots and videos. So it makes sense to ask for a bigger cut initially. But then, after a year of service, when Apple has kind of recouped their costs, it makes sense to switch to give more money to the developer, because the developer is doing most of the work maintaining an app. It's interesting because just today, before Apple announced these changes, I saw the developers of Sketch, the popular Mac app for designers. They also basically changed to a subscription model. So Sketch very famously exited the Mac App Store a few months ago. And today they had this announcement, which was kind of confusing at first, and they added a bunch of clarifications, that there's no longer going to be major versions, major upgrades. So like from Sketch 3.9 to Sketch 4.0. Instead, they will switch to a subscription model that you pay for an app, like $100. You can use that app for a year with free updates, and then you will have to pay $99 again for another year of usage. But unlike most subscription models, when what you mentioned, Mike, what happens if I stop paying? The Sketch developers have figured out this system where you stop paying, you will get stuck on the current version. It'll keep working. You will just no longer get free updates or the next version of the app. And this is interesting timing because just today Sketch announces this model and Apple comes out with these changes. I have to wonder, I see no relation between the two, but I have to wonder if at some point maybe Sketch will reconsider the idea of not making an iOS app, an iPad version, or coming back to the Mac App Store. It does seem to me like Apple is laying the groundwork for developers of this kind of pro software where, the really heavy users want to pay for those apps. Maybe in the future we'll finally see, Sketch for the iPad Pro or a real Photoshop for the iPad Pro, It does seem to me like this is not for everyone. So if you come up with a $2.99 utility to change, text from lowercase to uppercase, maybe a subscription is not what you're looking for. But even if you're a small team, but making a really popular app such as Sketch, maybe this is something that will make it possible for you to have an iOS version or to go back to the App Store and the Mac App Store.
Yeah, the implications for the Mac App Store are really interesting because the pricing thing has come up. Sandboxing is a big issue too. We'll see if that makes a mention on Monday. But Sketch actually just this morning rolled out an announcement about subscription pricing for their app, and they very famously, very loudly pulled out of the Mac App Store. Was it, I think, the end of last year? And so I don't know if this is enough to bring them back or bring somebody back without fixing sandboxing, but it is. Like when I think about this, I can see the repercussions for the Mac, and I can see how it would make the Mac App Store potentially more inviting to developers. If you think about some of the big software on the Mac now, I'd pay for Office and I pay for the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite, both monthly, and it comes out of my credit card and it's done. And up until now, this has not been possible for developers who want or need ongoing revenue from their app, and they want the benefits of being in the Mac App Store. So even though the Mac App Store, as far as I can tell, didn't get any specific mentions in any of this, the fact that this is coming everywhere, I think will benefit the Mac.
The fact that they said this is coming everywhere suggests that there will also be some other stuff for the Mac App Store, right? Like if they're going to make some changes to it, please make all the changes to it.
Yeah.
The other thing that's coming here is search ads. We spoke about this weeks ago, right? There was a Bloomberg piece, I think.
Mm-hmm.
This is interesting. So, developers will be able to buy keywords. A developer only pays when someone clicks on the ad. The ad will show in searches. A small blue banner pops up at the top. There's a little tab that indicates it's an ad. But it does look visually different. It looks like you maybe can or can't include images on it. It depends. I guess maybe it's higher rate or something because it will take up more real estate, or maybe it's done on screen size. I'm not sure. I haven't read all of the documentation as we speak. It seems like there are lots of interesting restrictions about user data. So Apple is saying they will not be sharing user data with developers. Users have the ability themselves to opt out of Apple's search ad data tracking and location tracking if they want to. I don't know what would happen to ads showing for you if you did that. But Apple is going to be creating search profiles of people, not tracking personal info. So what I assume is they will understand what they understand about you. They will then drop you into a bucket, right? You're in this type of person bucket, which then a developer can buy ads to show for this type of person, is what I would assume. There is an auction system that developers will buy into. So you'll bid on keywords, very much like how Google does it. Phil Schiller says that apparently they're going to try this will somehow be fair to indie developers and big companies. I don't know how you do that in an auction system, because an auction system is whoever pays the most gets the word. So right. I would love to see how that's going to be. It's going to be fair. This goes into beta on Monday.
I really don't know what to think. I mean, it seems like Apple is leaving money on the table for Google and Facebook to grab with app install ads. I just, I feel like we're not the best people to comment on ads because we as geeks have, ad blocking vision. We naturally block things that looks like banners or ads on the web. If anything, I really think John Siracusa on Twitter, he has a point when he says they don't really look that different. Paid ads from normal app results on the App Store search. They look different to us because we've been trained after years of staring at computer screens to recognize, those little labels and different backgrounds. But I bet that most people will just click on the first paid advertisement for an app. And in that case, maybe it's a good idea for Apple. What maybe bothers me is that maybe like Google, I don't say this about Facebook because I don't have those feelings about Facebook, but it sort of breaks the purity of search results, because you say, look, we came up with this crazy awesome search engine and it's so intelligent and it can figure out the best results for you. And we use data in a bunch of different ways to give you the best results at any time. But then, oh, by the way, as long as you pay, you can be in the first spot. It sort of breaks that purity of design of search. But, people are clicking them, money is being generated, and everyone seems to be happy. So who am I to comment on that?
I know I click Google ads.
Oh, me too. Occasionally when I see an offer, like I'm Googling, I don't know, restaurants or, hotels, you get the coupons from Google Ads. I occasionally do that as well. But I do know that I'm clicking on an ad. A lot of people have no clue that there are ads on Google search. They just see a bunch of links.
If it's what they're looking for, though, it's not a problem. And that's where it becomes difficult. Who is going to be able to buy, Tweet?
Exactly. Or how many developers will pay for Markdown? Or, I don't know, image cropping?
Who's going to buy email?
Exactly. I mean, want to bet against Google and Microsoft there with Outlook and Gmail?
Yeah. Is Airmail going to be able to afford to buy the word email? I mean, and I assume that you won't be able to buy trademarks. But that could be difficult, though, because, what if your application is called 123 Note Taking, and somebody else makes a calculator and a note taking application, and they buy the keywords 123 and note taking, and somebody searches for 123 Note Taking looking for your app, and they're given a nicely blue highlighted, so that must be the one you're looking for, and it's not the application. Right?
And
there is some real difficult stuff in this.
The developer of 123 Note Taker really is having a tough time.
Or a good day. I've maybe put in a lot of oh dear.
Worst app story ever, Mike. 123 Note Taker. First, it's not updated for 2 years, and then it switches to subscriptions and wants to buy an ad.
Well, sister subscriptions got better, but now can't get visibility in search because everyone's buying his keywords. I just wonder how this is going to play out. And so this is okay. Google Ads are pretty good. They're not always that good. There was an interesting story recently, EU referendum happening right now, and the No campaign were buying up keywords this week for people to register to vote. If you typed in register to vote on Google, there was an ad that popped up. It looked like it was taking you through to sign up to register to vote, but you weren't. Right? So you weren't being able to register to vote because they didn't want people to register because then they might be registering to keep us in the European Union. So there are definite problems with this. This is Google having this problem. The company has done this stuff for over a decade, nearly maybe 2 decades. This is the first time Apple's done this stuff. I'm discounting iAd. This is the first time Apple's done anything like this, and they are implementing this system in a massive way on the App Store. One of the biggest e-commerce platforms on the planet. I really struggle to see how they're going to get this right. They don't have the the company knowledge in this. They don't do this stuff. I don't know.
You know, what makes me curious is currently if you go to the App Store and search for mail, you get a top result, which is like one of those custom banners that Apple gives you. So in theory, if you pay for an ad, you should be able to rank higher than Apple with the mail app.
Unless Apple bid the most.
Unless
and pay themselves.
So what it comes down to, let's just shift money from accounting to
Eddie Q is just in there bidding late at night on keywords.
So what it comes down to is exactly keywords. So if I'm a user, I open the App Store and I search for email and I see a promoted result. Well, I don't know it's a paid ad, but I just see Outlook. Okay, Microsoft has Outlook on iOS. It's pretty cool. I'm going to download Outlook and I'm going to be happy. But now I'm a different type of user and I go to the App Store and I search for email power user or, I don't know, email workflow. Because I expect to see stuff, a different type of email client, such as, I don't know, Spark or Airmail. Is Apple able to kind of narrow down the results based on those keywords? That's the idea, right? Because if I search for email, that's a general type of search. Like looking for hotel on Google means everything, means nothing. But if I look for, more specific keywords, the system should be able to surface apps from smaller developers who have invested, a smaller amount of money and show them to me, which is, the implication is even if our own search, so even if normal non-paid for App Store search is not able to surface results for apps such as Tweetbot or, Airmail, the developer will be able to invest like $50 or $100 to buy that spot so that when that type of user searches for that kind of app, it'll come up. That's the perfect idea. I don't know if it will work in practice. That's my concern.
Yeah, it's definitely just a minefield of stuff to worry about. And Google's been doing it a really long time. And I think Apple can get there. I think they can get it done right. But I would imagine there's going to be a period of learning and of problem solving, that people will find loopholes and people will find ways to sort of game the system. But it's at the end of the day, I agree with the notion that a lot of people aren't going to see these as ads, that they're going to kind of just move past them, or they're going to, I don't know how big of a difference it's going to make. And of course, anytime you have a bidding system, there's a problem with the rich get richer type situation. But on the backside of all this conversation is the privacy angle, right? That's what so many people talk about when we talk about Google ads, that, you actually happened to me just the other day. I was looking at something on Amazon and then I'm on Facebook, and that product I was looking at on Amazon is suddenly in a Facebook ad, right? And I understand how that works. It doesn't bother me. But Apple has a very different take on all of that from Google and Facebook and everyone else. And so there's a page, search ads and privacy on Apple's developer site. And basically what it boils down to is that no one is getting data from users. Individual developers who are running ads, all they have is the relationship based on direct interaction. And so you can't see, if you're buying a keyword, you can't see how, data based on other keywords. There's some contextual information shared with developers, but nothing that's really all that invasive, I don't think. And none of it goes to third parties in line with Apple's overall. Apple has, at apple.com/privacy, they have a company-wide privacy policy, and they're saying that search ads fall underneath that existing language. And so, there's segmentations, there's stuff that advertisers can do here, but it seems like it's going to be much more anonymous than something like Google AdWords.
I'm not worried about this kind of stuff.
I'm not either. I'm not worried about it on Google. I don't,
No.
That doesn't bother me. I know how it works. My living is based on advertising. I don't have a problem with it.
Nobody's buying an ad to show to Mike Hurley, right? We must buy an ad for that one person.
It's really sad.
What are you worried about? Maybe 123 Note Taker will. because I'm clearly the target market now. That the ad privacy stuff is kind of just like we say. I'm sure they're doing all this stuff and it's great, but like it's just like it makes it sound better than it is. At the end of the day, they're selling random data now, which in a way that they weren't doing before about more people. Mm-hmm. This is a step in a camp that is not a regular Apple camp. I was about to say a phrase that I won't say, but I think you all know what it was.
Easy.
But I'm not going to say it. I'm not saying it, so you can't blame me. But you know what it is, and I genuinely believe that. That's all I'm going to say.
We could still blame you.
You can still blame me, but I haven't said it. I could mean anything. But do you guys agree with me on that thing that I haven't said?
Probably.
Federico?
Maybe.
It seems really unlikely, right? This feels like a new Apple thing. Wouldn't have happened before.
I don't know. I feel like maybe it's just, it's just evolution. Doesn't matter who is alive or isn't.
Hey, what are you talking about?
I mean,
That's not what I was
it's
gonna
just, things change always.
Sure they do.
What's the Greek philosopher said, Pantarei, like everything flows. And it's
that was
just
John Lennon.
No, was not Greek, but he was a philosopher. Anyway, it's just the natural state of things to change. So whoever is in charge, has to recognize change. That's what makes great, executive people to be able to notice change, to be surrounded from like-minded individuals who can spot changes. And now at this point in time, I can understand why Apple sees, there's these companies, Google and Facebook, are getting a lot of money to show app install ads to people who are not even looking for apps because they're either searching or checking their selfies on Facebook, but they're making lots of money because people want to download apps, new apps and games. So why don't we also make some money when people actually do search for new apps to try? In theory, I understand, and it's maybe even a good idea. It's not the purest form of technology that I like, because come on, you're buying an ad. It's not, it's not sexy, if you will, but it works. Advertisement works, and especially app install ads seem to be a profitable business for a lot of companies, a lot of people. So I do understand why Apple wants to do it. I remain skeptical that they will be able to put up a system that is accurate and that also kind of is able to balance, the bigger companies with a lot of cash and the indie developers who want to promote, 1, 2, 3 note taker with markdown features for, URL scheme automation. But we'll see. It makes sense. I'm just a little skeptical.
All right. Sharing is the last part. Not really much here. I don't really understand this. Apparently on the share sheet, so on the home screen you'll be able to 3D touch on an icon and pops up a share sheet, and you'll be able to share apps with your friends.
Yeah.
See, I have many thoughts about that. So, and I'm gonna tell you my thoughts. Right after this commercial. No, I've always dreamed to do that, but there's no commercial.
Take a break if you want.
No. I just wanted to say that. I don't know why. Anyway, I think it's a terrible idea to have a fixed option in the limited space of the quick action menu on the home screen, because developers are currently limited to 4 choices for the quick. Assuming this is the quick action menu, I have to assume it is. In the current version of iOS, the options, the space that developers have is limited. And for Apple to come in and say, okay, look at that 4th option, ain't that nice? Well, we're going to replace that with the share icon. I don't think that will be the case. I think we're looking at a redesign of the 3D touch menu on the home screen coming with iOS 10, because it seems like a terrible idea to force a share option upon developers So maybe there will be a second menu, or maybe there will be like a swipe option. You 3D touch on an icon, then you swipe to reveal a bunch of additional actions, one of them being share, or I don't know, delete maybe. The wiggle thing is going away. I don't know.
No.
But it sounds to me like a redesign of the home screen for 3D touch is coming.
Yeah, I think that you're completely right. It would be so weird to put the share thing on what we currently have. It would be, I don't understand. Like, it's such limited real estate. Why would you put it there? It would make sense that there might be a completely different view come Monday.
Yeah, even then, I mean, and I agree with you guys. You can't stuff a share sheet in there. I mean, my thought was maybe it says share or something, and then it opens the share sheet. But even then, and even if they redesign it, unless there's just like tons of space to spare, like I don't know if putting ways to share apps to your friends, like that is a thing for developers. And again, like you said, we're friends with lots of developers. But if promoting apps is like gets in the way of the user experience from the customer's perspective, then I think that's the wrong decision. Right now, if you go in the App Store, you can tap and you can share, but it's a little hidden and it's not super great. And I could see like how great would it be if you could 3D touch on an app icon in the update list, right? Like, oh my gosh, like Instagram had an update and I can just share it like from there. Like that sort of more natural is a more natural place to me than the home screen. But I agree with you guys. Like we'll reserve judgment until we see how it looks, but I do have concerns here. But I think that the underlying desire for Apple is good, that they want to make it easier to share apps that you're using. In the Loop article, there's a section about the featured section of the App Store. Apple's going to be improving that, bringing the categories tab back, which has like come and gone over the years, and make it more easy to browse through apps, because there is a huge discovery problem. Even if you set aside search completely, just going through the App Store sort of manually is difficult. And sometimes you see a tweet go by about an app and you can click on that, but it could all be easier, and I understand them wanting to do that.
I guess people being able to share apps with each other is nice in a perfect world. I think the people that share apps already share apps. I don't think that necessarily putting a 3D touch action is going to increase app shareability. It's just going to make it easier for the people that already do it to just do it from another way. By the way, if you do share apps with anyone, I would like to recommend a fantastic app by our friend John Voorhees called Blink, because you should always assign an affiliate tag to it, even if you're saying to a friend, because that's money back for you, my friends. So check out Blink. It's a great affiliate linking application. And he also has an app called Associate now, which does the same for Amazon, which is awesome. Go check those apps out. I'll put links in the show notes.
I'll tell you what, guys. I think that people who share apps with other people online with the default messages are weird. Like, how you share an app and there's like a pre-composed message with a bunch of exclamation points, like, go check out this app. And, it's super creepy. I think it's weird. I never share apps like that, like with a message that a developer wrote for me. I don't like it. So I don't think I'll be a fan of this option if it's done in this way.
Unless they have a direct share to Mac Stories, they just built that right into the share sheet for you.
Well, in that case, right? it has to append a link to a Mac Stories review if it finds one. In that case, I will approve.
You will approve.
Yes,
that's nice. That's real good. All right, why now? Why today?
See, my idea is, they don't want this possible controversy that is rising today, the feedback from developers, the questions about ads and subscriptions, to be the focus of the post-keynote announcements. Other reason, maybe it's just too long and they don't want to have like a 3-hour keynote. And they get to hold sessions about these topics with developers already being prepared, with developers already having questions because they had almost a week to think about them, so they can go to the sessions, go to the labs, be prepared, ask questions. I think it makes sense in this case.
You know what? That's probably it. All of those things make perfect sense. So, yeah, of course you do it if you think of it that way. Very clever, especially the part about giving developers time to think about it. I think give them a week to think about it, or however many days it is. Clearly, I have shown over the last 2 weeks, I have no idea when WWDC is. Right? Last week, it was a week away. Today, it's a week away. It was neither a week away last week or this week. Anyway, I think it's good to give people time to think about it so they can come prepared. It's like so many of our developer friends say, like, and David was talking about this on Under the Radar a couple of weeks ago, that it was, that if you're going to sessions, come prepared to those sessions so you don't waste your time, or you're going to labs, come prepared. Like, think about what you would want to ask. Mm-hmm. This is just that, right? Having the idea of thinking about what you want to ask.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
Anything else on this?
I mean, I think the big, like, the meta view here is that clearly Apple's been at work and has been listening and is trying something. I mean, it's been, what is it, 8 years since the iOS App Store launched, and there really have been very few structural changes after in-app purchase was added. And so to see changes, and obviously there are problems with some of these, and there's going to be a lot of figuring it out, but to see them doing something is encouraging to me. And I'm sure it won't all be perfect at first, but I do think that they realize that there are problems in the App Store economy. And so much of what's in here is really designed to help make development, and in particular independent development, which is, of course, the world we live in, more sustainable. And yes, I mean, the rich will always get richer in the App Store, but I can see in here the desire to make smaller apps and smaller teams more sustainable. And that's something that I can get behind 100%.
Couldn't agree more. This episode is also brought to you by Squarespace, the simplest way for anyone to create a beautiful landing page, website, or online store. You can start building your own site today at squarespace.com and use the offer code WORLD at checkout to get 10% off your first purchase. With easy-to-use tools and templates, Squarespace will help you capture every detail of what drives you, because if it's worth the effort, it's worth sharing with the world. And Squarespace make it easy for anyone to share with the world. It doesn't matter if you know any type of coding or not. It doesn't matter what your skill level is with building websites. You can just put something together on Squarespace. Everything's drag and drop. They have fantastic tools, beautiful templates that feature responsive design. They have all the features that you're going to need to get a great looking site out into the world, whether you want to set up a blog, a page for your business, a page for your band, a store because they have their commerce functionality, a cover page, you just want a single page website for an announcement that you're working on. Squarespace make it easy for everyone. Even if you know how to do all of this stuff, but just don't want to have to worry about hosting, ongoing development, security updates. If you don't want to have to worry about any of that, Squarespace is also great for you. They have state-of-the-art technology that they use to ensure security and stability, and this is why Squarespace are trusted by millions of people around the world. They have 24/7 support. They have a dev platform so you can dig into the code if you want to and do whatever you like in there. They also give free domain names if you sign up for a year. Squarespace plans start at just $8 a month, and you can try it out today for free with no credit card required by going to squarespace.com. And when you decide to sign up, make sure that you use the offer code WORLD, WORLD, to get 10% off your first purchase and show your support for Connected. Thank you to Squarespace for the continued support of this show and Relay FM. So we had a whole episode planned to talk about WWDC predictions. We're not going to do all of that now. We're going to pick some, and we're going to do our very favorite thing in the world. We're going to go round robin. I hope someone's going to keep the order of the round robin, because you know how that can get really messy. Stephen, I'm going to go to you first.
Okay.
You can get the first pick, round robin style. Pick something, maybe limit it to OS X and iOS that you're hoping for at WWDC.
No one cares about tvOS anyways. It'll be fine.
Except for Joe Steele.
It's not his real name. I'm going to go for my first round robin pick with what I think will be a crowd pleaser, especially if Jason Snell's in the crowd, about the name that the Mac OS rebranding will happen this year. Obviously, there's some collision with Mac OS 10 and iOS 10. The X is as dated as the second Matrix movie. It's time to move on. And I think that we will see Mac OS. I'm not willing to say if it will be the correct way, capital M with a space or not, but I think the rebranding will happen.
All right, what do you think the name will actually be?
I think they will do Mac OS and then the California code name. So Mac OS Death Valley.
Any number?
I think that the number will exist in like System Profiler because it has to have a version number, but I think on the outside there will not be a public facing number.
In that regard, what will iOS be called?
iOS 10.
iOS 10.
I know that sounds like a dumb question.
So here's the thing. I think that where OS 10 is in its life cycle, the exact version matters less. When you were in like 10.2, 10.3, 10.4, those were all drastically different from each other.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Yosemite to El Capitan, you set somebody down in front of them, they can't tell the difference. OS 10 is more mature in many ways. It is moving more slowly. So I think that the number is like, the number is a really clear indication that there were big differences, and that is still a thing in iOS's life, and it's not a thing in the Mac's life anymore.
What do you think the number will be, though?
Probably 10.12. I don't think they're going to go to... I think if they go to 11, they will do it when iOS does, just to keep it consistent for people who see it.
Because then everything will be on 11, right?
Yeah, but I don't think that's going to be a public thing.
WatchOS doesn't follow the same numbers, does it? But tvOS does.
tvOS does because they like hijacked on to iOS at iOS 9. And so tvOS is weird, but I think it's sort of like the Mac where the exact version doesn't really matter to people.
Yeah. Federico, do you have any thoughts on that? You agree with Stephen?
I mean, what kind of thoughts are there to have? It's a name. I just don't see the big deal from a lot of people speculating on this, including you too, but in a loving way.
Well, because you don't care at all. I mean, I'm in the middle, right? But like, people really care about this because lots of people really do care about the Mac.
What does it matter? You just have to use the computer. You don't look at the name. You use it.
Well, let's see if they call this iOS teaching. We'll see if you care about names then, huh?
That's awesome. If you ask me, they can call it iOS Coca-Cola and I won't care as long as it's great.
Federico, tell us something you do care about.
The name. No, I really do. I'm sorry. I really do care about, let's see, improvements to iPad multitasking. I feel like what we got last year with the split view was nice, was great. Especially on the big iPad Pro, it has changed kind of the way that I use the iPad because I'm in split view all the time, basically, and I save a lot of time, doing stuff, moving like from my Twitter client to Slack and to my text editor. But I do want to see a new app picker design because the current one shows you the last... this is a thing that not a lot of people know. But the 3 apps that you see when you swipe down in split view, those are not a random choice or the last 3 apps that you opened. That's a very conscious design decision from Apple's engineers. Those are the last 3 apps that you used in split view. It's kind of confusing. I still kind of don't get it, but that's the way that it works. I want to see a new design there. I want to have a search bar. I want to have favorites, and I want to have like a more compact view. That's kind of like a home screen with all of my apps, so it's faster to say switch between apps, to search for apps, and to kind of to move, if I opened, I don't know, Ulysses like 2 days ago, so I don't have to scroll and scroll and scroll to find it, And there also needs to be, I think, a faster way to kind of swap the apps that you're using in split view. So right now, let's say that you have Tweetbot on the left side and you have, I don't know, Safari on the right side. If you want to swap the positions, you got to do a whole dance of closing the split view, opening Safari, then doing the swipe again. There needs to be a faster way. And, while we're talking about split view, I need to mention drag and drop. Now, the last time I heard some of the iPad features, Apple will save them for iOS 10.1.2.3 possibly updates throughout the year and next year. So I don't know just how many iPad features we'll get, and I don't know if drag and drop is one of them. But still, I want to be optimistic that it'll happen sometime during the iOS 10 release cycle, and that will be nice because I want to be able to drop text, files, images, whatever. Instead of just using the clipboard or extensions, it'll be nice to just touch and hold and drag it away. It's going to be a nice time saver.
I'd like to add on to some of your multitasking stuff. I want all of that, by the way, but the multitasking thing, at a bare minimum, I want a search bar. That would be the most important one to me, I think, because the favorites would be really nice, but just letting me access anything. I would really like a keyboard shortcut to bring up that view, like Spotlight. So maybe you would hit Command S. It wouldn't be that, obviously, but you'd hit Command S, and it would automatically bring up that side view and go to the search. I could type what I wanted and then arrow up and down and hit what I want, and it will automatically pop those two apps into split view. I would love that, and I don't think I ever would have thought of something like this before, but it's just because I use an external keyboard with my iPad Pros 100% of the time, and being able to do this would be great. I can't think of how you could invoke the split view quicker with touch, right? We've spoken about this. It's slow to bring that across and it's cumbersome, but it would be really nice as a quick way to be able to do this with a keyboard shortcut. I would really love that.
It's your turn, Mike. You kind of hijacked my round, but fine.
I gave you the ability to add on to Steven's. You just didn't care enough. I'm going super small potatoes with this, but it's something I want so much, which is better handling of rich text on iOS.
I thought it was going to be a name.
iOS Mike. It's such a simple thing, but it's something that I really, really want to see done better. If I copy and paste something that's in rich text into another application, I want it to be rich text in that other application. I don't want all the formatting stripped away. It's such a basic thing, and it's done really badly on iOS. And there are a few things where if I'm finding myself opening up a Mac to do something, which is just sending a couple of emails every week, because it's a pain in the butt to do it otherwise. I can do it otherwise, but it's me copying and pasting lots of little things as opposed to just one whole block of something, like a table or a list, and keeping the bullet formatting as I want it to be between applications. I really, really hope for this. It feels like such a basic thing, but I'm sure you'll agree with me, Federico, that it is handled really badly right now.
Yeah, the rich text framework on iOS is even implemented differently across Apple apps. So you can, most of the time, you're not able to copy and paste rich text between notes and mail, for example, or pages. It's all kinds of messed up, and there needs to be improvements to TextKit or whatever to have like a whole new rich text framework that includes, formatting, images, any kind of media. You should be able to copy and paste in a rich text editor. And I don't think we'll see TextEdit coming to iOS because Apple has Pages there. But it could be a nice demo. It's one of those small features that would make for a really nice 30-second demo to be able to paste bullet lists between apps. It's one of the biggest oversights coming from OS X to have that kind of lack of support for rich text on iOS. Needs to be fixed.
We're back to you, Stephen.
So I'm going to go with the ever popular story of the Siri API. So we've seen obviously a lot of movement here with other companies and other products, but Siri is still basically just locked away in its little, little screen on top of iOS, and can't really interact with many apps unless they're built by Apple. So you can say, "Ahoy telephone, add potatoes to my shopping list." But if your shopping list is in any list or OmniFocus and not reminders, you're out of luck. And I think it's high time for that to change, where developers could hook into Siri and Siri could send data from apps, and apps could provide Siri with data to return back to you. So you could ask Siri a question about what is on your to-do list in OmniFocus, and it could tell you. There's obviously some issues to work out here. The big one being sort of the thing people complain about with the Echo is that it's sort of robotic to talk to. So you have to say, play the song by Federico's band on Spotify, because it can't parse, or you can't tell it to always ignore Amazon Prime Music, because everyone always wants to ignore Amazon Prime Music. I think they can work through that. I think there's, will be some education there with customers on how it could work, but I think it's time that the Siri API finally be serviced.
I think it's time, right?
It's got to be.
Feels like it. Federico, you're up.
Okay, so what can I pick right now? Let's see. I'm gonna go with the customizable control center, just because I feel like I use Control Center a lot for music playback, the flashlight and those shortcuts. And I would love to be able to have my own shortcuts in there to open the settings that I always use, such as, enable low power mode, or, jump to the content blocker sections of the Safari settings, or maybe even have app shortcuts at the bottom with quick actions, so I can open Tweetbot, or I can go to the Quip document, for example. I feel like it was great when Apple added Control Center with iOS 7, I want to say, but it's mostly remained the same. Like, aside from design changes and a bunch of minor additions for Apple settings, it hasn't really been opened up to user customization, and I feel like it's time to do that.
I agree. I definitely agree. For me, I'm going to go with system-wide dark mode. I am one of those people that I always choose dark modes for applications. It's easier on my eyes. I think it's nicer than blinding white light all the time. And I would love to see this pushed by Apple as a thing, so more and more developers were put in a position where they would be thinking more about creating dark UI as opposed to white UI. So I would really love to see that become a thing in iOS as a system-wide dark mode to try and further push along a lot of the stuff that Apple's been doing about color and reducing brightness on the screens.
Yeah, I would tack onto that too, bringing both that and night shift stuff to the Mac, because if it's bad when you're looking at an iPhone or an iPad, it's even worse if you're looking at a 27-inch iMac. And so I think that stuff could become a thing on both platforms, and maybe even the watch. We spoke about it even on the watch. If you look at your watch in the middle of the night and it's that bright blue light, it's really jarring. And so like night shift and dark mode, I would like everywhere, and I would like them to be independent from each other, so I could run my phone in dark mode all the time, which I would do, and only have night shift on at night. So I think it's more toggles and settings, but I think it'd be worth it.
All right, Stephen, you do have a pick.
So I'm going to go with collaborative documents inside of the Notes app. I know that's small. There's bigger things on the list that I could go with.
Oh, man, I'd love that, though.
But I would love it a lot. I use Notes heavily, and my wife and I have some shared documents that we have to get into, and they're in Google Docs, which she doesn't like using. She does nothing else in Google Drive except these 3 documents we have to look at once a month. And it would be great if it was in Notes, with the asterisk of LOL I work in the cloud, that it would have to work better than their current document syncing air quote scheme with iWork. But I think they could do it, and I think that it would add another level of richness to what already honestly is a pretty good Notes app. If they do that and add a font size to the Mac, it'd be great. But Notes is really good, and I think that sharing is the next level up from where they are now.
All right, Federico, your final pick.
My final pick, I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with Xcode on iOS.
Oh, yeah, nice.
I was about to say messages, but instead...
I'm going to pick that one, so you still have something to say.
Okay. Xcode for iOS. I feel like needs to happen. There's a new generation of programmers waiting to be able to learn Swift on iOS and specifically on the iPad. Now, last time I heard there was some kind of prototype of Xcode for the iPad Pro. I don't know about other iPads in November. And it was definitely a thing inside Apple. And John Gruber heard the same. There was a link that he shared during Fireball. So I don't know. We haven't heard any rumors about that since. Some people say it's going to be something like Playgrounds from OS X ported to the iPad instead of the full-on Xcode suite of tools and apps. I don't know if you will be able to write an app on the iPad and submit it to the App Store, but that's the end goal. I feel like to be able to move development from a Mac to any computer, whether it's a Mac or an iPad and, even an iPhone. Because I don't think it's crazy to imagine a future where people can program an app on a phone and to send it to the App Store. It's crazy today, but is it crazy 5 years, 10 years from now? I don't think so. So the idea is to be able to program and to create software for Apple platforms on any Apple computer. And by that, I include the iPhone and the iPad. So maybe this year we'll get a slimmed down version of Xcode on the iPad Pro, or maybe we'll get a full Xcode on iOS. I don't know. The focus, it's the entire WWDC promotional material, the entire website seems to be heavily Swift themed. That makes sense with the release of Swift 3.0 coming out. But I feel like that could be, in addition to App Store changes, that could be the developer announcement at WWDC. And if it happens, I feel like an entire category of people, including me, will finally be able to learn programming, to try out Swift for real in an Apple developer tool on iOS, which is great. And I'm really excited about that possibility.
Me and you have both said that we think it's going to happen, right? I believe that it's going to occur. I just think that the iPad Pro is begging for this. And yes. I think it will be, whatever it is, it will be just Swift. But I think it's going to be. I think we're going to get something. My final pick, and the final pick, is revamped iMessages. There are so many services now that do some core parts of messaging so much better than iMessages does. Basically, iMessage needs to become aware of the internet. What we need to see at a very bare minimum, I believe, is stuff like just rich previews. If I send Steven a tweet in iMessage, I want him to see what the tweet is without having to click through to the link. Just expand that stuff. It's all there. The metadata is all there. It's all available to just pull in. Slack does it. Telegram does it. So many applications are able to pull this stuff in and do things with it. I would love to see that. Coming along with that, more emoji stuff. Just go crazy with the emoji. Put them everywhere. Make them big, right? Big emoji when you're just sending an emoji. I love that. It's one of my favorite things in applications these days. I love big emoji. Really kind of make iMessage
great again.
I wasn't going to say that, but I will go with that. Make it a messaging service that you would expect to see in 2016. Stuff like stickers would be interesting. You don't have to go that far, right? It would be great, but just make it more aware of the internet and bring it into line with messaging services. Because right now, iMessage just feels like SMS, and it's not that, but that's what it feels like. All right, so that's it. WWDC stuff. If you want more WWDC predictions and you enjoy people picking things, on Upgrade this week, me and Jason did a WWDC prediction draft. We started with 28 predictions. We picked one each until we have a list of 14, which is the first Upgrade WWDC draft. So we speak about more prediction stuff than we had time for today because Apple dropped an absolute bombshell on us. So you can go check that out if you want to. Next week on Connected is going to be a very big thing. RelayCon, WWDC. next week, we're going to be on Monday having a cavalcade of Relay FM stars on stage, doing a few different show-like things. It's going to be recorded. We're doing it live with an audience in San Francisco. It will be released as an episode of Connected. So that will be Monday or Tuesday. You will get that. Look forward to it. We've been working very hard on it. We're very excited about it, and I hope that you enjoy it. So that's what you're going to get from us next week. Until then, if you want to find our show notes, head on over to relay.fm/connected/94. If you want to find Federico online, he is at Viticci, Viticci. He writes at macstories.net. Federico is joining me in London. We look forward to seeing everyone at the Connected meetup this week. It's going to be a great time. I'm very excited. Stephen, we will then be meeting up with in San Francisco, and we all look forward to it. I think I speak to all of us. If you are a Connected listener, come over and say hi. We cannot wait to meet all of you that are going to be in San Francisco next week. Stephen is at ISMH on Twitter, and he writes over at 512pixels.net. I am at iMyke, IMYKE. Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. Thank you to Squarespace and Braintree, and we'll be back next time. Until then, say goodbye, guys.
Arrivederci.
Adios.